This play is called Our Town. It was written by Thornton Wilder, produced by the Cobden High School Theater Department. The name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line. Latitude 42 degrees, 40 minutes. Longitude 70 degrees, 37 minutes. The first act shows the day in our town. The day is May 7th, 1901. The time is just before dawn. The sky is beginning to show some streaks of light over in the east there, behind our mountain. The morning star always gets wonderful bright the minute before it has to go, doesn't it? Well, I better show you how our town lies. Up here is Main Street. Way back there is the railway station. The tracks go that way. Polish towns across the tracks and some Canuck families. Over there is the Congregational Church. Presbyterian is across the street. Methodist and Unitarian are over there. Baptist is down in the hollow by the river. Catholic Church is over beyond the tracks. Here is the town hall and post office combined. The jail is in the basement. Brian once made a speech from these very steps here. And along here is a row of stores, hitching posts and horse blocks in front of them. The first automobile is going to come along in about 5 years. Belonged to Baker Cartwright, our richest citizen, lives in a big white house up on the hill. Here is the grocery store and Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody in town manages to look into these two stores once a day. The public school is over yonder and high school is still farther over. 8:45 mornings, noon times, and 3 o'clock afternoons, the whole town can hear the yelling and the screaming coming from the schoolyards. This is our doctor's house. Doc Gibbs. And this is the back door. Now, there's some scenery for those who think they have to have scenery. This is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn, peas, beans, hollyhocks, heliotrope, and a lot of burdock. In those days, our newspaper come out twice a week, the Grover's Corners Sentinel. And this is Editor Webb's house. And this is Mrs. Webb's garden. Just like Mrs. Gibbs, only it's got a lot of sunflower too. And right here is a big butternut tree. Nice town. Y'all know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever come out of it, so far as we know. The earliest tombstones in the cemetery up there in the mountain say 1670 through 1680. They're Grovers and Cartwrights and Gibbses and Herseys. Same names as are around here now. Well, as I said, it's about dawn. The only lights on in town are in a cottage over by the tracks where a Polish mother has just had twins, and in the Joe Crowell house where Joe Jr. is getting up so as to deliver the paper, and down in the depot where Shorty Hawkins is getting ready to flag the 5:45 for Boston. Naturally, out in the country, all around, there have been lights on for some time, what with milk-ins and so on. But townspeople sleep late. So, another day has begun. Here's Mrs. Gibbs coming downstairs to get breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. The new hospital is named after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first. A long time ago, in fact. She went out to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there. Pneumonia. But her body was brought back here. She's up in the cemetery there now, in with the whole mess of Gibbses and Herseys. She was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. And here's Mrs. Webb coming downstairs to get breakfast too. And that's Doc Gibbs. Got that call at 1:30 this morning. And there's Joe Crowell Jr. delivering Mr. Webb's sentinel.
Morning, Doc Gibbs.
Morning, Joe.
Somebody been sick, Doc?
No, pair of twins over at Polish Town.
Do you want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it. Anything serious in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My school teacher, Miss Foster, is getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
Why, to Clare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course, it's none of my business, but I think if a person starts out to be a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Fine, Doc. I never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tells me when it's going to rain.
What's it telling you today? Gonna rain?
No, sir.
You sure?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
I want to tell you a little something about that boy Joe Crowell there. Awful bright Joe was. Graduated from high school here. Head of his class. So, he got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech and graduated head of his class there too. It was all wrote up in the Boston paper at the time. Going to be a great engineer Joe was, but the war broke out and he died in France. All that education for nothing.
Get up, Bessie. What's the matter with you today?
And here comes Howie Newsome, delivering the milk.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Somebody sick?
No, pair of twins over to Miss Groskowski's.
Twins, eh? This town's getting bigger every year.
Gonna rain, Howie?
No. Fine day to burn through. Come on, Bessie.
Hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Going on 17. Bessie's not mixed up about the roots. Ever since the law card stopped taking a quart of milk every day. She won't say a quart just the same. Keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Miss Gibbs. Doc's just coming down the street.
Is he? Seems like you're late today.
Yes. Something was wrong with the separator. Don't know what it was. Doc?
Howie?
Children, time to get up.
Come on, Bessie.
George, Rebecca. Everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down and drink your coffee. You can catch a couple hours sleep this morning, can't you?
Well, Miss Wentworth's coming at 11. I guess I know what that'll be about. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours sleep. Frank Gibbs, I do wish I could get you to go away someplace and take a rest. I think it would do you good. Wally, time to get up. Emily, 7 o'clock. I declare, you got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines, and all he thinks about is that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school. George.
George, look sharp. Yes, Pa. George, don't you hear your mother calling you? Well, I guess I'll go upstairs and get 40 winks.
Wally, Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, you wash yourself good or I'll come up and do it myself.
Mom, what dress shall I wear?
Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night and needs his sleep. I washed and ironed that blue gingham for you special.
Mom, I hate that dress.
Oh, hush up with you.
Every day, go to school dressed like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Mama, George is throwing soap at me.
I'll come and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
We've got a factory in our town too. You hear it? Makes blankets. The Cartwrights own it, get it for a fortune.
Children, no, I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I won't have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth. That's that. Put away your book, Wally.
Oh, Mom, by 10 o'clock I gotta know all about Canada.
You know the rules as well as I do. No books at table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
Well, I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
I'm bright too when I'm looking at my stamp collection.
I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. But it seems to me that 25 cents a week's enough for a boy your age. I declare, I don't know how you spend it all.
Oh, Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual.
Well, dear, I think it's a good thing to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I love most in the world? Do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
Mama, it's the first bell.
I gotta hurry.
Mama, I don't want any more.
I'll eat it later.
Walk fast, but you don't have to run. Wally, pull up your pants to the knee. Stand up straight, Emily.
Tell Miss Foster I sent her my best congratulations. Can you remember that?
Yes, Ma.
You look real nice, Rebecca. Pick up your feet. Here, chick, chick, chick. No, go away, you. Go away. Here, chick, chick, chick. What's the matter with you? Fight, fight, fight. That's all you do. You don't belong to me. Where do you come from? Oh, don't be so scared. Nobody's going to hurt you. Good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Well, I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I didn't know as I go to choir practice tonight. Wouldn't be any use.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I can't seem to do that and stay on the key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd try and string some of these beans.
Let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
I've decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say they hate them, but I notice they're able to get them down all winter.
Now, Myrtle, I've got to tell you something, because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
Myrtle, did one of those secondhand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. And first I thought it was a patient wanting to see Dr. Gibbs, and he wormed his way into my parlor, and Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting here.
Why, Julia Gibbs.
He did, that old thing. Why, it was so big I didn't know where to put it, and I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
I don't know.
You don't know. $350. What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a real trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know. Sounds crazy, I suppose, but for years I've been telling myself that if we ever had the chance.
How does the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat around the bush a little and said that if I ever got a legacy, that's the way I put it, I'd make him take me someplace.
And what did he say?
Oh, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing around Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years, he takes a trip out to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's enough treat for anybody, he says.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War, only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair.
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over those hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pasting it all out, like we were going to buy it.
Well, if that second-hand man's serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And then you'll get to see Paris, all right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only it seems to me that once in your life, before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to skip a few hours. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners, and all the dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm in our town, a buzzing and a humming coming from the school buildings. Only a few buggies left in Main Street, the horses dozing at their hitching posts. You all remember what it's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office tapping people and making them say, ah. Mr. Webb is cutting his lawn over there. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. No, sir, it's later than I thought. There are the children coming home from school already.
I can't, Lois. I've got to go home and help my mother. I promised.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, I never got a kiss from such a great lady before. Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Forrest.
You go out and play in the fields, young man. You got no business playing baseball on Main Street.
Awfully sorry, Mrs. Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class.
Well, I was ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Mrs. Corcoran made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awfully long time on both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your head knife when you're doing your homework over in your room.
Why, can you?
You certainly do stick to it, Emily. I don't see how you can sit still for that long. I guess you like school.
Well, I always feel it's something you have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
Yeah. Emily, what do you think? We could work out a kind of telegraph from your window to mine, and once in a while, you can give me a hint or two on one of those algebra problems. I don't mean the answers, Emily, of course not. Just some little hint.
Oh, I think hints are allowed. So, if you get stuck, George, you whistle to me, and I'll give you some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally bright, I guess.
I figure it's just the way a person's born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer, and my Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can come to work on his farm. And if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Oh, well, I better be getting out to the baseball field. Thanks for the talk, Emily. Good afternoon, Mrs. Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come over here and help me string some of these beans for the winter. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Why, he's growing up. How old would George be?
I don't know.
Let's see. He must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today, and it was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm going to make speeches all my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try and get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, will you answer me a question serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All my kids got good features. I'd be ashamed of them if they hadn't.
Oh, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you, yes. Now that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. I've never heard of such foolishness.
Oh, Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you good looking?
Yes, I was, if I do say it. The prettiest girl in town next to Mamie Cartwright.
But, Mama, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody, to get people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Come along now and bring that bowl with you.
Oh, Mama, no help at all.
Thank you, thank you. That'll do. Now, I have to interrupt again here. Thank you, Mrs. Webb, and thank you, Emily. Now, there are some more things that we want to explore about this town. I think that this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have just begun building a new bank here in Grover's Corners. Had to go to Vermont for the marble, sorry to say, and they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, they put in a copy of the New York Times and Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellows have found a way of painting all that reading matter with the glue, a silicate glue. That'll make it keep 1,000, 2,000 years. We're putting in a Bible, and the Constitution of the United States, and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and all we know about them is the names of the kings and some copies of wheat contracts, and the contracts of the sale of slaves. Yet, every night, all those families sat down to supper, the fathers came home from work, and the smoke went up the chimney, same as here now. And even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of the people is what we can piece together out of the joking poems and comedies that were wrote up for the theater back then. So, I'm going to have a copy of this play put in a cornerstone, and people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us, more than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindbergh Flight. See what I mean? So, people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up, and in our marrying, and in our living, and in our dying. Well, a good deal of time has gone by. It's evening. You can hear the choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are at home doing their schoolwork. The day is running down like a tired clock.
Now look here, everybody. You didn't come into the world to give pleasure. Softer. Softer! Get it out of your heads. The music's only good when it's loud. You leave loudness to the Methodist. Couldn't beat them even if you wanted to. Now again. Enough!
Emily.
Hello.
Hello.
I can't work at all. The moonlight's so terrible.
Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third.
Why, yes, George. That's the easiest of them all.
Emily, I don't see it. Can you give me a hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer is in yards.
In yards? What do you mean?
In square yards.
Oh, in square yards.
Yes, George. Don't you see?
Yeah.
In square yards of wallpaper.
Wallpaper. Oh, I see. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. My, isn't the moonlight terrible? And the choir practice going on? I think if you hold your breath, you can almost hear the train all the way to Cook. Hear it?
Huh. What do you know?
Well, I guess I better go back and try to work.
Good night, Emily, and thanks.
Good night, George.
Before I forget it, how many of you will be able to come in Tuesday afternoon to sing at Fred Hersey's wedding? Show your hands. That'll be fine. I'll be right nice. We'll do the same music we did for Jane Trowbridge's last month. Now, we'll do Art Thou Weary, Art Thou Languid. It is a question, ladies. Make it talk. Ready?
Oh, George, can you come down a minute?
Yes, Bob.
Make yourself comfortable. I'll only give you a minute. George, how old are you?
I'm 16, almost 17.
And what do you want to do after school's over?
Why, you know, Pa, I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
And you'll be willing, will you, to get up early, milk and feed the stock, and you'll be able to hoe and hay all day?
Sure I will. What do you mean, Pa?
Well, George, I was in my office today, and I heard a funny sound. And what do you think it was? It was your mother, chopping wood. Here you have your mother, getting up early, washing and ironing, and cooking meals all day long. She still has to go out in the backyard and chop wood. I suppose she just got tired of asking you. She just gave up and decided it was easier to do it herself. You eat her meals, and you put on the clothes she keeps nice for you, and you run off and play baseball. Like she's some hired girl we keep around the house that we don't like very much. Well, I knew all I had to do was call your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief, son. George, I've decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Not, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, because it's a present you give her. But because you're getting older, I imagine there's a lot you finally do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Let's see. Tomorrow's your payday. You can count on it. Rebecca will probably feel she ought to have some more, too. I wonder where your mother could have gotten to. Choir practice has never ran this late before.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't know why she's in that old choir anyways. She hasn't got any more voice than an old crow. Traipses around the street at this hour of night. Just about time you're tired, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Good night, Martha. Good night, Mrs. Foster. I'll tell Mr. Webb. I know he'll want to put it in the paper. My, it's late. Good night, Irma. Real nice choir practice, wasn't it? Myrtle Webb, look at that moon, will you? Potato weather for sure.
Naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of those others. But now we're alone. Really. It's the worst scandal that ever was in this town.
What?
Simon Stimson.
Now Luella.
But Julia, have the conductor of a church drink and drunk year after year? You know he was drunk tonight.
Now Luella, we all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the trouble he's been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. If Dr. Ferguson keeps him on there in his job, the only thing the rest of us can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have, and it doesn't happen anywhere near so often. My, I hate to go to bed on a night like this. I better hurry. Those children will be sitting up till all hours. Good night.
Can you get home safe, Luella?
It's as bright as day. I can see Mr. Soames scowling at the window now. You'd think we'd been to a dance the way the men folk carry on.
Well, we had a real good time.
You're late enough.
Why, Frank? It ain't me later than usual.
And you, stopping at the corner, got a lot of hens.
Now, Frank, don't be grouchy. Come out and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight. that wonderful? What did you do all the time I was away?
Oh, I read, as usual. What were the girls gossiping about tonight?
Well, believe me, Frank, there is something to gossip about.
Simon Stimson far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. How will that end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
Well, I guess I know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anyone else in this town. Some people just ain't cut out for small town life. There's nothing we can do but just leave it alone. Come, get in.
No, not yet, Frank. I'm worried about you.
What are you worried about?
I think it's my duty to make plans for you to get a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, I'm going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense in going over that again.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Come, get in. It's getting late. Next thing you know, you'll catch a cold. I gave George a piece of my mind tonight. I reckon you'll have your wood chopped for a while anyways. No. Start getting upstairs.
Oh dear. There's always so many things to pick up, seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front door every night. All those people of that part of town do.
Well, that's the trouble with them. They're getting citified. They got nothing fit to burgle, and everyone knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window. You're always spoiling everything.
Well, let me look just a minute.
Use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think? Do you? I think the moon's getting nearer and nearer, and one of these days there's going to be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting nearer, the guys that sit up all night with telescopes would tell about it, and it'd be in all the newspapers.
George, do you think the moon is shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
9:30. Most of the lights are out. No, there's Constable Warren trying a few doors on Main Street. And here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, Mr. Webb.
Quite a moon.
Yeah?
All quiet tonight?
Well, Simon Stimson is rolling around a little. Just saw his wife thinking out to hunt for him, so I looked the other way. There he is now.
Good evening, Simon. Kalyn seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. Good evening. Yes, Simon. Most of the town has settled down for the night. I guess we better do the same. Can I walk along the ways with you? Good night.
I don't know how that's gonna end, Mr. Webb.
Well, he's seen the peck of trouble, one thing after another. Oh, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, just give him a word, will you? He thinks a lot of you, Bill.
I don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. Leastways, not more than 2 or 3 a year.
I hope not. Well, good night, Bill.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, Papa, it's me.
Why aren't you in bed?
I don't know. I just can't sleep yet, Papa. The moonlight's so wonderful. And the smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope. Can you smell it?
Yes. Haven't any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa, no.
Well, enjoy yourself, but don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Good night, Papa.
George, I never told you about the letter Jane Crowell got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter, and on the envelope it said, Jane Crowell, the Crowell Farm, Grover's Corner, Sutton County, New Hampshire, the United States of America.
What's so funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. The United States of America, continent of North America, Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mine, oh God. That's what it said on the envelope.
What do you know?
And the postman brought it just the same.
Well, what do you know?
And that is the end of the first act, friends. Three years have gone by. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains just a little bit more, and the rains have brought down some of the dirt. Some babies that weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences already. And a number of people who thought they were right young and spry have noticed that they can't even bound up a flight of stairs like they used to, without their heart fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature has been pushing and contriving in other ways too. A number of young people fell in love and got married. Yes, the mountains got bit away a few fractions of an inch, millions of gallons of water went by the mill, and here and there a new home was set up under a roof. Almost everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Almost everybody in the world climbs into their graves married. The first act was called the daily life. This act is called love and marriage. There's another act coming after this, and I reckon you can guess what that's about. So, it's 3 years later. It's 1904. It's July 7th, just after the high school commencement. That's the time most of our young people jump up and get married. As soon as they pass their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations. Looks like they suddenly feel themselves fit to be married. It's early morning. Only this time, it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden and Mrs. Webb's here, drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines, drenched. All yesterday, over there in Main Street, the rain looked like curtains being blown along. Huh. It may begin again any minute. There, you can hear the 5:45 for Boston. And here's Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb come down to make breakfast, just as though it were an ordinary day. I don't have to point out to the women in my audience that those two ladies they see before them, both those ladies cook 3 meals a day, one for 20 years and the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They brought up 2 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, and never a nervous breakdown. It's like one of those Middle West poets said, you've got to love life to have life, and you've got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
Yeah, Bessie.
Here comes Howie Newsome, delivering the milk. And here comes Joe Crowell, delivering the papers.
Morning, Howie.
Morning, Joe. Anything in the newspapers I ought to know?
Nothing much, except for losing about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had, George Gibbs.
Reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases, too.
Yep, mighty fine ball player. Whoa, Bessie. I guess I could stop and talk if I have a mind to.
I don't see how he could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you, Howie?
Can't tell, Joe. Never had a talent that way. You're up, Pearly Bill.
Seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. River's been rising all night.
Joe Crowell's all worked up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir, that's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player, Joe. Even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Name of Hank Todd. Went down to Maine to become a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how does the weather look to you?
Oh, it ain't bad. Think maybe it'll clear up for good.
Good morning, Howie. Do you think it's going to rain again?
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. It rains so heavy, I think maybe it'll clear up.
Certainly hope it will.
How much did you want today?
I'm going to have a house full of relations, Howie. Looks to me like I'll need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
My wife said to tell you we both hope they're very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. No, they will.
Thanks a lot, Howie. Tell your wife I hope she gets there to the wedding.
Yes, she'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Morning, Mrs. Webb.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Newsome. I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, ma'am. And the 2 of cream?
Will it start raining again, Mr. Newsome?
Well, just telling Mrs. Gibbs how may lighten up. Mrs. Newsome told me to tell you we both hope they're very happy, Mrs. Webb. No, they will.
Thank you, and thank Mrs. Newsome. And we're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Yes, we hope to get there. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. You're losing one of your chicks.
Frank Gibbs, don't you say another word. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
Groom's upstairs shaving himself, only there ain't a whole lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's happy to leave us. Every once in a while he says I do to the mirror, but it doesn't sound convincing if you ask me.
I declare, Frank, I don't know how he'll get along. I've arranged his clothes and seen to it he's put warm things on. Frank, they're too young. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch a step of cold within a week.
I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Now don't start that, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scaredest young fellow in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I'd make a mistake for sure. But when I saw you coming down the aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. Only trouble was, I'd never seen you before. There I was, in a congregational church, marrying a total stranger.
And how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I made something for you.
A Julia Hersey, French toast.
Tain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of the hours struck off.
Yes. I get a great shock every time I think about George setting out to be a family man. Great gangling thing. I tell you, Julia, there's nothing more terrifying in this world than a son. The relationship between father and son is the awkwardest, darndest.
Well, mother and daughter's no picnic, let me tell you.
They'll have their troubles, I suppose. If there's nothing you can do, so just leave it alone. Everyone has a right to their own troubles.
Yes, people are meant to go through life 2 by 2. Tain't natural to be lonesome.
You know something I was worried about when we first got married?
I'll go along with you.
I was afraid we wouldn't have conversation more than last just a few weeks. We'd run out and eat our meals in silence. That's a fact. Well, we've been married more than 20 years without any noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather, tain't very choice, but I always find something to say. Did you hear Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
No. Only day of the year she isn't managing everyone's business up there. I got the impression she's crying.
Lord's sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca, come get your breakfast.
Good morning, everyone. Only 5 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
Just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Now, George, you put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents. You don't go out of this house without you're prepared for it.
Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
George, you'll catch your death of cold and cough all through the service.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers. But while you're in my house, you'll live wisely, thank you. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Here, take a cup of coffee first.
Be back in a minute. Good morning, Mother Webb.
Goodness, you frightened me. Now, George, you can come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Why not?
George, you know as well as I do that the groom can't see his bride on his wedding day. Not until he sees her in church.
Oh, that's just superstition. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George, and you don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How is Emily?
She hasn't waked up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep?
Well, no wonder. We were up till all hours sewing and packing. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do. You sit down here a minute with Mr. Webb and drink this cup of coffee, and I'll go upstairs and see she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's baking too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
Oh, fine. I'm fine. Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, you see, on her wedding morning, a girl's head's apt to be full of clothes and one thing and another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yes, I never thought of that.
A girl's apt to be a mite nervous on her wedding day.
I wish a fellow could get married without all that marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived has felt that way about it, George, but it hasn't been of any use. It's the women folk who built up weddings, my boy. For a while now, the women have it all their own. A man looks pretty small at a wedding. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure that the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
But you believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh yes. Don't you misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful thing. A wonderful thing. And don't you forget that, George.
No, sir. Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, you see, I'd been to college, and I'd taken a little time to get settled down. But Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is. Oh, age hasn't much to do with it. Not compared with, other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, I don't know. Was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other night of some advice my father gave me when I got married. Charles, he said, Charles, start out early showing who's boss. Best thing to do is to give an order, even if it don't make sense, just so she'll learn to obey. And then he said, if anything about your wife irritates you, or conversation, or anything, just get up and leave. That'll make it clear to her. And oh yes, he said, never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Well, Mr. Webb, I don't think I could ever...
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. Let that be a lesson, Aunt George. Never ask advice on personal matters. Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle Luke's never been interested, but I thought you...
A book came into my office the other day, George, on the philo system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. I'm thinking of beginning it in a small way in the backyard. I'm going to put an incubator in the cellar.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you should be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boys some good advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you alone with them.
George, Emily's got to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Myrtle, I guess you haven't heard about that older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the cavemen, no bridegroom should see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding, or near it. Now, please remember that.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. Now, I have to interrupt again here. You see, we want to know how all this began. This wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like that began. You know how it is. You're 21 or 22 and you make some decisions, then wish you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years and that white-haired lady at your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How did such things begin? George and Emily are going to show you now the conversation that they had when they first knew that, as the saying goes, they were meant for one another. But before they do that, I want you to try to remember what it was like to have been very young, and particularly the days when you were first in love, when you were like a person sleepwalking, and you didn't quite see what street you were in, and you didn't quite hear what was being said to you. You were just a little bit crazy. Will you try to remember that, please? Now, they'll be coming out of high school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class, and as it's June, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily has just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't have to tell you how important that is. Yep, there they are, coming down Main Street now.
I can't, Lois. I've got to go home. Goodbye. Oh, Ernestine! Can you come over tonight and do Latin? Isn't that Cicero the worst thing? Tell your mother you have to. Goodbye. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Can I carry your books for you, Emily?
Why, thank you. It isn't far.
Excuse me a minute, Emily. Say, Bob, if I'm a little late, start practice anyway, and give her some long high ones.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Lizzie. I'm awfully glad you're elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, since you asked me, I might as well say it right out. George. Goodbye, Mrs. Corcoran.
Goodbye, Mrs. Corcoran. What was it?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot. And I used to watch you as you did everything, because we had been friends for so long. And then you began spending all your time at baseball, and you never stopped to speak to anyone anymore. Not even your own family. You didn't. And George, it's a fact. You become awfully conceited and stuck up. All the girls say so. They may not say it to your face, but that's what they say about you behind your back. And it hurts me to hear them say it. But I've got to agree with them, a little. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry I said it.
Emily, I'm glad you said it. I never thought that such a thing was happening to me. I guess it's hard for a fella not to have faults creep into his character.
I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Oh, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father is, and as far as I can see, your father is. There's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, I feel it's the other way around, that men aren't naturally good, but girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be as perfect as a man, because we girls are more nervous. No, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily.
Now, I can see that it's not true at all, and I suddenly feel that it wasn't important anyways.
Emily, would you like an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Thank you. I would.
Hello, Stu. How are you? Good afternoon, Mrs. Slocum.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? What? Emily Webb. What have you been crying about?
She just had an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She almost got run over by that hardware store wagon. Everybody says that Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Well, now, you take a drink of water, Emily. You look all shook up. I tell you, you gotta look both ways before you cross Main Street nowadays. Gets worse every year. What do you have?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
No. Have an ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, there are 125 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm talking to you. State inspector was in here yesterday, and now they're bringing in these automobiles. And the best thing to do is just to stay home. Why, I can remember when a dog could lay out in the middle of Main Street all day and nothing come along to disturb him. There they are. Enjoy them. Why, yes, Mrs. Ellis. What can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
No, don't think of that. We're celebrating our election. And then, do you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I've got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told me.
Oh, George, please don't think of that. I don't know why I said it. It's not true. You're...
No, Emily, you stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me like you did, but you'll see. I'm going to change so quick. You bet I'm going to change. And, Emily, I want to ask you a favor.
What?
If I go away to state agriculture college next year, would you write me a letter once in a while?
I certainly will, George. It certainly seems like being away 3 years, you get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corner wouldn't be so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners isn't a very important place when you think of all New Hampshire. But I think it's a very nice town.
The day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here. I know that's true.
Well, I'll try to make my letters interesting.
You know, Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to agriculture school to be a good farmer.
Oi, George!
Yeah, and some of them say it's even a waste of time. You can get all that out of the pamphlets the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting old. He's about ready for me to start taking over his farm tomorrow, if I could.
My.
And like you say, being gone all that time in other places with other people, gosh, if anything like that can happen, I don't want to go away. And I guess new people aren't any better than old ones. I'll bet they almost never are. Emily, I feel that you're as good of a friend as I've got. I don't need to meet the people in other towns.
But George, maybe it's very important for you to go and learn all that about cattle judging and soils and those things. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'll tell Pa about it tonight.
Why, George, I don't see why you have to decide right now. It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me about that fault in my character. What you said was right, but there was one thing wrong in it. And that was when you said that for a year I was noticing things. And you, for instance. Why, you say you watched me as I did everything? I was doing the same about you all the time. Why, sure, I always thought of you as one of the chief people I thought about. I always made sure where you were sitting on the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now I've been trying to walk home with you, but something's always gotten in the way. Yesterday, I was standing over against the wall waiting for you, and you walked home with Miss Corcoran.
George, life's awfully funny. How could I have known that? Why, I thought...
Listen, Emily, I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to agriculture school. I think that once you find a person that you're very fond of, a person that's fond of you too, and likes you enough to be interested in your character, well, I feel that's just as important as college is, and even more so. That's what I think.
I think that's awfully important too.
Emily...
Yes, George?
If I do improve and make a big change, would you be, could you be?
I am now. I always have been.
So, I guess this is an important talk we've been having.
Yes.
Wait just a minute and I'll walk you home. Mr. Morgan, I'll have to go home and get the money to pay for this. It'll only take a minute.
What's that? George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me...
Yes, but I had reason. Look, here's my gold watch to keep until I come back with the money.
That's all right. Keep your watch. I'll trust you.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George, not a day over. Got a little bit of shock, Emily?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Well, now we're ready to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. We can't get them all in the one wedding, naturally, and especially not to a wedding at Grover's Corner, where they're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister. That gives me the right to say a few things more about it. For a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. Like Mrs. Gibbs said a few minutes ago, people are made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding. People here are so put together that even at a good wedding, there's a lot of confusion way down deep in people's minds, and we thought that ought to be in our play too. The real hero of this scene isn't on stage at all, and you all know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellas said. Every child born into this world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now, and we all know that nature's interested in quantity, but I think that she's interested in quality too. That's why I'm in the ministry. And don't forget all the other witnesses at this wedding too. The ancestors. Millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2. Millions of them. Well, that's all my sermon. It wasn't very long anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. It came over me at breakfast this morning. There sat Emily, eating her breakfast as she's done for 17 years. And now she's going off to eat it in someone else's house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, I can't eat another mouthful. And she laid her head down on the table and she cried. Oh, I've got to say it. There is something downright cruel about sending our girls out into marriage this way. I hope her girlfriends have told her a thing or two. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I went into it blind as a bat myself. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. There they come.
Hey, George! Yeah, look at him, Mark. You look scared to death. Hey, George, don't look so innocent, you old geezer. You know what you're thinking. Don't disgrace the team, big boy. Woo!
All right. That'll do. That is enough of that. There used to be an awful lot of that kind of things at weddings in the old days, Rome and later. We're more civilized now. So they say.
George, what's the matter?
Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Why, George, you wanted it.
No, Ma, listen to me.
No, George, you're a man now.
Ma, listen, for the last time I ask you, all I want to do is be a fella.
George, if anyone should hear you, now stop. Why, I'm ashamed of you.
What? Never mind that. Where's Emily?
Oh, George, never again. You gave me such a turn.
Cheer up, Ma. I'm getting married.
Let me catch my breath a minute.
Cheer up, Ma. Well, Ma, you say Thursday nights. Thursday nights, Emily and I will come over for dinner. Now, Ma, what are you crying for? We've got to get ready for this.
I've never felt so alone in my whole life. And George over there, looking so... I hate him! I wish I were dead! Papa!
Emily, now don't get upset.
But Papa, I don't want to get married.
Everything's all right.
Why can't I stay for a while just as I am? Let's go away.
No. Now stop and think a minute.
But don't you remember that you used to say, all the time you used to say that I was your girl? There must be lots of places we could go to. I could work for you. I could keep house.
Shh. You mustn't think of such things. You're just nervous. George, can you come here a minute? Why, you're marrying the best young fellow in the world. George is a fine fellow.
But Papa...
George, I'm giving away my daughter. Do you think you could take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to try. Emily, I'm going to do my best. I love you. I need you.
Well, if you love me, then help me. All I want is someone to love me.
Emily, I will. I'll try.
And I mean forever. Do you hear? Forever and ever.
Come, they're waiting for us. Now you know everything will be all right. Come quick.
Do you, George, take this woman, Emily, to be your wedded wife, to have a
Perfectly lovely wedding. Loveliest wedding I ever saw. Oh, I do love a good wedding. Don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
I do.
And do you, Emily, take this man, George, to be your wedded husband?
Don't know when I've seen such a lovely wedding, but I always cry. I don't know why it is, but I always cry. I just like to see young people happy. Don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
I've married over 200 couples in my day, and do I believe in it? I don't know. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting. Well, let's have Meddleson's wedding march.
Aren't they a lovely couple? Oh, I've never been to such a nice wedding. I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say, happiness, that's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
And that is all the second act, folks. 15 minutes intermission. This time, 9 years have gone by, friends. Summer, 1913. Gradual changes here in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rare. Farmers coming into town in Fords. Everybody locks their doors now at night. Ain't been any burglars in town yet, but everybody's heard about them. You'd be surprised, though, on the whole, things don't change much around here. This is certainly an important part in Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop. A windy hilltop. Lots of sky and lots of clouds. And often lots of sun and moon and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon and you can see range on range of hills. Awful blue they are, up there by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. And way up, if you got a glass, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington, where North Conway and Conway is. And of course, our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock, is right here, and all the towns that lie around it. Jeffrey, and East Jeffrey, Peterborough, and Dublin. And there, quite a ways down, is Grover's Corners. Yes, A beautiful spot up here, mountain laurel and lilacs. I often wonder why people like to be buried in Woodlawn and Brooklyn when they might spend the same time up here in New Hampshire. Over there are the old stones, 1670, 1680. Strong-minded people that come a long way to be independent. Summer people walk around here laughing at the funny words in the stones. They don't do any harm. And genealogists come up from Boston, get paid by city people to look up their ancestors. They want to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution and the Mayflower. Well, I guess I don't do any harm either. Wherever you come near the human race, there's layers upon layers of nonsense. Over there are some Civil War veterans, iron flags in their graves. New Hampshire boys had a notion that the Union ought to be kept together, though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, friends, the United States of America. The United States of America. And they went and died about it. This here is the new part of the cemetery. Here's your friend, Mrs. Gibbs. Let me see. Oh, there's Mr. Stimson, conductor at the Congregational Church. And Mrs. Soames, who enjoyed the wedding so. You remember. Oh, and a lot of others too. And Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow has kind of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill. We all know how it is. And then time, and sunny days, and rainy days, and snow. We're all glad they're in a beautiful place now, and we're coming up here ourselves when our fit's over. Now, there are some things that we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. Everyone knows that something is eternal, and it ain't houses, and it ain't names, and it ain't even the stars. Everyone knows in their bones that something is eternal, and that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people that ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years, and yet you'd be surprised at how people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. You know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth and the things they had, the ambitions they had, the pleasures they had, and the things they suffered, and the people they loved. They get weaned away from earth. That's the way I put it, weaned away. And they stay here where the earth part of them burns away, burns out. And all that time, they slowly get indifferent to what's going on here in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something they feel is coming. Something important and great. Aren't they waiting for the eternal part of them to come out clear? Some of the things they're going to say maybe will hurt your feelings, but that's just the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser. All those terribly important things kind of grow pale around here. And what's left when your memory is gone? Your identity, Mrs. Smith? Well, there are some living people. Here's Josephine Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a new made grave. And here comes a Grover's Corners girl that left town to go out west.
Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you?
I'm Sam Craig.
Gracious sakes alive, of all people. I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Samantha.
Yes, I've been away over 12 years. I'm in business out in Buffalo now, Joe. But I was in the East when I got news of my cousin's death, so I thought I'd combine things a little and come see the old home. You look well.
Yes. I always say, I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll be here in a few minutes now. I had to come here early today. My son's supervising at the home.
Old Farmer McCarty? I used to do chores for her after school. She had the lumbago.
Yes, we brought Farmer McCarty here a number of years ago now.
Why, this is my Aunt Julia. I'd forgotten that she... Of course.
Yes, Doc Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago, about this time. And today is another pretty bad blow for him, too.
That's my sister Carrie's girl.
Sam. Samantha Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon.
Do they choose their own verses much, Joe?
No, not usual. Mostly the bereaved pick a verse.
Doesn't sound like my Aunt Julia. There aren't many of those Hersey sisters left now. Let me see. Where are my mother and father?
Over there with the Craigs, Avenue F.
He was conductor at the church. Drank a lot, we used to say.
Nobody was supposed to find out about it. He'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know.
Oh, did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course, it got around. He chose his own epitaph. You can see it there. It ain't a verse exactly.
Why, it's just some notes of music. What is it?
I wouldn't know. It was written up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of?
Who?
My cousin.
Oh, didn't you know? Had some trouble bringing a baby into the world. 'Twas her second, though. There's a little boy, about 4 years old.
And the grave's going to be over there?
Yes. There ain't much more room here among the Gibbses, so they're opening up a whole new Gibbs section over by Avenue B. If you'll excuse me now, I see they're coming.
Who is it, Julia?
My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
The laddie Clare. The road up here must have been awful muddy. What'd she die of, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth. I'd forgotten all about that. My, wasn't life awful and wonderful?
Wonderful. Was it?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls ever graduated from high school. I've heard Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called on them at their new farm just before I died. Perfectly beautiful farm.
Yep, right smart farm.
This is my favorite hymn. I was hoping they'd sing a hymn. Hello.
Hello, Emily.
Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily?
Hello. It's raining.
Yes. They'll be gone soon, dear. Just rest yourself.
It seems thousands and thousands of years since Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. Oh, I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Stimson?
How do you do, Emily?
Mother Gibbs, George and I have made that farm into just about the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new farm and the great long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought that out of the money you left us.
I did?
Don't you remember, Mother Gibbs? The legacy you left us? Why, it was over $350.
Yes. Yes, Emily.
Well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs. And it never sinks below a certain mark they have there. It's fine. It won't be the same to George without me, but it's a lovely farm. Black people don't understand, do they?
No, dear. Not very much.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. Mother Gibbs, my little boy is spending the day at Mrs. Carter's. He loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford too. Never gives any trouble. I don't drive though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away? Of being one of them? How long does it?
Shh, dear. Just wait and be patient.
I know. Look, they're finished. They're going. Look, Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he? Oh, Mother Gibbs, I never realized before how troubled and how in the dark light persons are. Look at him. From morning till night, that's all they are. Troubled.
A little colder than it was. Yes, that rain has cooled it off a little.
But Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there again into living. I feel it. I know it. Why, just for a moment, I was thinking about About the farm. And for a minute I was there, and my baby was on my lap, as plain as day.
Yes, of course you can.
I can go back there and live all those days over again. Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go and live back there again.
Yes, some have tried, but they soon come back here.
Don't do it, Emily. Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be.
But I wouldn't live over a sad day. I'd choose a happy one. I'd choose the day I first knew I loved George. Why should that be painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes.
And as you watch it, you see the thing that they, down there, never know. You see the future. You know what'll happen afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
That isn't the only reason you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all that and think only of what's ahead and be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life? It's all I know. It's all I had.
Oh, Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't.
But it's a thing I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyways.
No, at least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day of your life. It'll be important enough.
Well, then it can't be since I was married. Or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday at least, can't I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right. February 11th, 1899. A Tuesday. Do you want any special time of day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. You remember, it had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before, and they'd begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
Why, there's Main Street. And there's Mr. Morgan's drugstore, before he changed it. And there's the livery stable.
Yes, it's 1899. This is 14 years ago.
Oh, that's the town I knew as a little girl. And look, there's the old white fence that used to be around our house. Oh, I'd forgotten that. Oh, how I love it so. Are they inside?
Yes. Your mother will be coming downstairs in a minute to eat breakfast.
Will she?
And you remember, your father had been away for several days, but he came back on the early morning train.
No.
He'd been back to his college to make a speech in Western New York at Clinton.
There's Howie Newsome. And there's our policeman. But he's dead. He died.
Whoa, Bessie! Morning, Bill.
Morning, Howie.
You're up early.
Been rescuing a party. Darn near frozen nuts down by Polish town there. He got drunk and lay out with snowdrifts. Thought he was in bed when I shook him.
Why, there's Joe Crowell.
Good morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howie.
Children, Wally, Emily, time to get up. Mama, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come dressed by the kitchen fire if you like, but hurry. Oh, good morning, Mr. Newsome. Whew, it's cold.
Time blew up on my barn, Mrs. Webb.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear. That's all. I laid it out for you special. On the dresser there. If it were a snake, it would bite you.
Yes.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early.
Yes, just been back from my old college in New York State. Been in any trouble here?
Well, I was called up this morning to rescue a Polish fella. Darn near frozen death he was.
We must get in the paper.
Pretty much.
Papa.
Good morning, Mother.
How did it go, Charles?
Oh, fine, I guess. I told him a few things. Everything here okay?
Yes, can't think of anything that's happened special. Downright cold. Howie Newsome says it's 10 below over to his barn.
Well, it's colder than that at Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off their head. It ain't Christian. Been any trouble here?
No, none that I've noticed. Coffee's ready when you want it. Charles, don't forget it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Yes. I've got something right here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't bear it. They're all so young and beautiful. Why did they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here. I'm grown up. I love you. All. Everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Good morning, Mama.
Well now, dear, a very happy birthday to my girl, and many happy returns. There's some surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't.
But birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. It'll keep you warm on a cold day. I want you to grow up and be a good, strong girl. That in the blue paper is from your Aunt Carrie, and I reckon you can guess who brought the postcard album. George Gibbs. Must have come over in the cold pretty early. Right nice of him.
Oh, George, I'd forgotten that.
Chew that bacon good and slow. It'll keep you warm on a cold day.
Mama, just look at me one moment, as though you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. You're a grandmother. Mama, I married George Gibbs. Mama, Wally's dead too. His appendix burst on a camping trip to Crawford Notch. We felt just terrible about it. Don't you remember? But just for a moment now. We're all together. Mama, just for a moment. Let's be happy. Let's look at one another.
That in the yellow paper is something I found in the attic among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now, and I thought you might like it.
And this is from you? Why, Mama, it's lovely, and it's just what I wanted. It's beautiful.
I'd hoped you'd like it. Hunted all over. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send all the way to Boston. Wally has something for you, too. He made it in manual training class, and he's quite proud of it. Be sure to make a big fuss about it. Your father has something for you, too. Don't know what it is myself. Shh. Here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't go on. It goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. I didn't realize. So all that was going on and we never noticed. Take me back, up the hill, to my grave. But first, wait. One more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, village corners. Mama. And Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking. And Mama's sunflowers. And food. And coffee. And new iron dresses. And hot baths. And sleeping. And waking up. Or you're too wonderful for anyone to realize you. Do human beings ever realize life? Oh, they live it. Every minute.
No. The saints and poets, maybe. They do some.
I'm ready to go back now.
Were you happy?
No. I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are. Just blind people.
Look, it's clearing up. The stars are coming out.
Oh, Mr. Stimson. I should have listened to them.
Yes, now you know. Now you know that's what it was to be alive. To move about in a cloud of ignorance. To go up and down, trampling on the feelings of those about you. To spend and waste time as if though you had a million years. Now you know that's what it was to be alive. That's what you wanted. Ignorance and blindness.
Simon Stimson, that ain't the whole truth, and you know it.
Here's one of them coming.
That's funny. Tain't no time for one of them to be here. Goodness sakes.
Mother Gibbs. It's George.
Dear, just rest yourself.
It's George.
It is. Now that ain't no way to behave. He ought to be home.
Mother Gibbs?
Yes, Emily?
They don't understand, do they?
No, dear. They don't understand.
Most everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. There are a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins, down at the depot, has just watched the Aubrey train go by, and at the livery stable, where someone's sitting up late and talking. Yes, it's clearing up. There are the stars, viewing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. Scholars still haven't settled the matter yet, and they seem to think there are no living beings up there, just chalk or fire. Only this one has been straining away all that time to try to make something of itself. The strain is so bad that every 16 hours, everybody lies down and gets a rest. 11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. You got a good rest too. Good night. Hello, everybody. Hello. How you doing? That's good. All right. First, I would love to thank our director, Mr. Grossman, for making this all possible. Throughout practice and stuff, he's been amazing. But you know, there's times where he was mad and scary, kind of intimidating. But if anything, that helped us out a lot more. And you know, now here we are performing And so just once again, thank you so much, Mr. Grossman, for directing us. It's been so amazing.
So, this play would be nothing without these awesome costumes. That was Mrs. Engelman, our home economics teacher. Let's have a round of applause for that.
Tonight, the lovely lighting that you saw, we have Kalyn Furry in the back, and she was our student director, and she's done a wonderful job. Assistant director come in, Miss Sydney, and she just made sure that we had everything down to a T and felt so comfortable on stage, and we want to thank you for her time and her effort. We also had absolutely wonderful sets, as you can all see, and that is thanks to Mrs. Hurt and her family.
And a round of applause for stage crew.
Yes, stage crew. And last but not least, thank all you guys so much for coming out tonight. You know, buying tickets, and any who bought like an advertisement from any of us. You help us raise money to come to this theater to get suits and stuff. And tomorrow is our good friend actor Eli's birthday, and you know we could all say and or sing happy birthday. You know, we won't be here tomorrow, so we can all sing happy birthday. He would much appreciate that. So once again, thank you guys so much for coming out, and good night.